All right, welcome. I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. First item is assignment for request for council action. We have several for the Finance Committee. 2412, amend salaries and benefits code 3102B7 and 3105 for the Police Department. 2413, expenditure over $35,000 Lake County Sewer for the Street Department. 2414, expenditure over $35,000 Goodyear Tire and Rubber Street Department. 2415, advance request OHTF state grant. 2416, budget amendments. 2417, expenditure fiscal year 22 chip rehab 1244 Hadcock Road. 2418, expenditure fiscal year 22 chip grant 850 North Huntington Street. 2419, RFQs and RFPs fiscal year 24 chip CDBG consultant services. 2420, RFQs, RFPs, fiscal year 24 CHIP CDBG Fair Housing Services. 2421, 2024 Material Bid Service Department. 2422, Adopt 2023 NFPA National Electric Code Building Department, which includes the building code. There's a couple things that it also includes. This is just one of them. All the codes for the state. 2423, grant application ODOD Brownfield Remediation Program. Next item is 2412, amend salaries and benefits code 3102B7 and 3105 for the Police Department. Chief Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. President. There's language in the salary and benefits code that permits us to use communications, part-time communications, part-time dispatchers, but it prohibits us from using them when we're at full staff and when we're at our full complement of dispatchers. We're not allowed to keep them on the payroll anymore. Not sure where that language came from, but I'm requesting that that language be eliminated so that we can keep them on the payroll, not necessarily use them, but keep them on the payroll. The reason being is oftentimes we have vacations, sick time, or resignations to where it puts us in a position where we need dispatchers quick, and it would be of great convenience for us to have them basically still in the mix so that we can pull them in and use them. I'm not asking for an appropriation for this. We'll use our existing funds, existing carry forward, if necessary, to pay for these positions.
I remember when we did this a while back. The reason we put them in there is that we did have shortages and we wanted part-time to fill in, and that's why we put this language in there specifically so we didn't increase the number. And I think if I remember correctly, we have 10 full-time dispatchers with 2 empties currently, and I think that we understood that there was part-time needed until the full-time positions were filled, and that was just to make sure that we had a complement of 10 full-timers that would run the department. I would think also that the sergeant who's in charge, if I'm correct, I forgot her name.
Sergeant Lynn.
She also does dispatching because, of course you want somebody who knows how to dispatch in charge of the dispatchers. So I think that if there's ever an emergency situation, she would be there to do it. But once there's all full times, I'm really not sure, my personal opinion, I'm not sure why you would need any part-time at that point. Because, you wouldn't want, and even in my business and in other people I represent, once you start mixing full-time and part-time in a position like this, then I think there'll be problems because the full-timers would feel slighted of why, sometimes, because part-timers want to have certain times to keep going. If they're not being used, they'll be like, well, I want to be used and I want to shift. And then the full-timers, then you get in a bunch of arguments. And I don't know, I think this is still fine because we don't have it a full complement yet, so there's nothing happening right now. That's just my personal opinion until we get the full-timers all on. And, I don't know how long that'll take. I know we've been trying to fill that for a while, which has been problematic. I know some of them went to the sheriff's department, which was kind of confusing to me because I think the sheriff pays less than we pay. But, I think we got to figure out what's going on with our dispatchers to make sure we have the best that we can have, and we are fill all our full-time positions.
Well, we have been full, and the reason I want to keep the part-timers on the payrolls or available is that if we have resignations, sometimes we have 1, sometimes we have 2, and then that puts us in a crisis. And when we're in that crisis, we can draw from those part-timers that are ready to go. There's no training, they're ready to go.
No, I understand it, but I guess people shouldn't be resigning. Hopefully we have a great great, whatever, and then they want to stay. But I get what you're saying, but I understand what you're saying, but I guess the only thing I disagree with is I think that the full-timers, they should be I think they're paid better than other dispatchers at other locations. But, as long as there's 10 of them, we should never have really an issue. But I agree with you, if somebody resigns, like we had a slew of them resign over the past 8 years or so, that's why we put the part-timers in there, because we couldn't find a full-timer to come.
Right, but when we have those resignations or retirements, and we have those open spots, now we have to find part-timers, and then we have to train them up, which it's not practical.
Right.
So by having these part-timers, and we have a full complement of full-timers, sometimes they can still fill in for vacations or sick time, because that still happens, and we still get into a spot where there's scheduling issues. But if we do have a resignation of 1, 2, or 3, or we're down 2, 3, 4 full-time dispatchers, which has happened in the past, we have this complement of part-timers that we can call on immediately, and they can jump in and help out.
Understood. Paul?
Thank you. Couple of things. First of all, Chief, are there any union rules that set forth how positions are going to be filled and who fills what, and the pecking order, from highest to lowest seniority, so that may reduce some of John's angst?
No, sir.
There's nothing like that?
No, we have management rights for assigning shifts.
Okay, all right, okay, that's a good thing. Okay, and then having been in a similar situation when we were scheduling the steel mills, having that bench, if you will, is a nice, how should I say, comfort zone, if you will, to make sure you do have qualified people, okay? And, you work the highest level you can, and then the regular people come back and fill in, you take down the lowest. You know that as I'll call it a spell person for my vernacular, okay? And it really saves a lot of headaches and hassles when you're scheduling.
So just to follow up on Paul's one question about union, this doesn't affect the union contract, nor will these part-timers ever be union employees?
No.
Thanks, Chief. Just quick question. In your request, you're not asking to increase hours for the part-timers. You're just asking to maintain the part-time staff for resignation, sick time, vacation time. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's really, Chief, well-trained subs, so to speak, because when you get in a bind, you can't just throw anybody in there. It's got to be somebody who knows what they're doing, and this is a group that knows what they're doing.
Precisely.
And there is no burden on the city to maintain this group of part-time employees. And when you need them, they have the option to say, no, I can't do it, because it's just things that come up, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mayor?
So the other thing we probably should share is if we hire somebody today, there's quite a field training program. So although by numbers you may have 10, you really only have 9 slots filled, because the training person is with the new dispatcher, and it's a significant training program, both for dispatchers and for officers. So to the chief's point then, each of those shifts that other person eventually will fill are not filled until we get to that point. So this would significantly help us with that.
No, understood. I mean, I think the language that he's requesting removes says that the part-timers will stay on through all what you just mentioned, all the oversight, probationary periods, all that stuff. The only time a part-timer would not be a part-timer, I guess, is once they're fully trained and on their own, I guess. That's how it was.
And if I could just add just one more thing. So I see every resignation that comes through. The last 2 that resigned were very good dispatchers, had been through the entire program, but just after they were on the job for a while and looked at family needs, it was the draw of the family, that thinking they could work nights, they could work weekends and manage it, and they could. They were doing the job exceptionally. It was just when they were looking at the impact it was having on the family, it was greater than what they anticipated.
Right. Chief, you got something? Oh. Anybody else? Reggie?
And a follow-up to my earlier question. So if somebody is on the part-time list, and let's say you call them up and say, hey, I need you this date, that day, is there a period of time in which, let's say they don't respond, they don't work, that you will take them off the roster, so to speak?
Yeah, if we had a better candidate to fill in as part-time, we just say, listen, you're not able to cover the hours we need you to cover, so we're gonna move on with a different candidate that,
Okay, so
that can
they drop,
effectively
so they
fill this.
drop off?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Okay, next one is 2413, expenditure over 35,000, Lake County Sewer for the street department.
Thank you, Mr. President. So each year, as part of our maintenance plan with the city storm sewer system, is we identify problem areas and then replace and repair inlet basins and also storm pipe. So with that, a lot of our storm pipe is under pavement or fairly deep. So this is a method of cleaning and grouting those deeper sewers that's safer and more economical. Thank you.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2414, expenditure over 35,000 for Goodyear tire for the sanitation department. Nino?
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is state bid pricing, just to give you perspective on why we're asking the amount. The front tires on our trucks are flotation tires. They're called the steering tires. Those are $700 a piece. So each truck's $1,400 worth of tires, one set per year. 14 trucks, you do the math, that's $19,600 just for those. The rear tires, the drive tires, those are more economical, believe it or not. They're $205 a piece, and they're recaps. We can't run recaps on the front tires, but we could run them on the drive tires. So there's 8 sets, 16 tires, there's 8 wheels on the back, so there's 16 per truck, and they go through 2 sets. That's $3,280 times 14, that's $45,920 if we run through both sets of the rear drives. That's why we're asking for that amount, so I appreciate it.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2415, advance request from OHTF, State Grant Fund. Keith?
We need to change this from OHTF. That was a state, it's been determined that it's not a state grant, it's a federal grant. So the fund number needs to change to 127, and that's a CHIP fund, not OHTF.
Move to approve.
Second?
As modified. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2416, budget amendments. We have 2405, accept check for Medina girls softball. Keith?
Pass through.
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-6, accept a check from Feckley Foundation.
Another pass through.
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-7, accept a check from Kiwanis.
Sticking with the trend, another pass through.
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 24-8, grant funds for license plate reader for the police department. Chief?
These aren't for the license plate reader, for police training.
Oh,
Up at the top, it says police training, but in the description at the bottom, it says the
Right.
grant,
yeah,
plate reader.
I see. That's why I did that. Okay. So this is for police training and not license plate reader.
Move to approve.
Second?
Any questions? All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
But the donation is from the Park Foundation? That's correct?
No, this is a grant from, well, maybe it is. But it's a grant for training.
yeah, but it says, he's just saying at the bottom, it said Medina Police Department received this donation. It wasn't a donation. It was a grant.
I think it's got mixed up on the appropriation request form. It is, it's a reimbursement from a grant for training. It's the state of Ohio, we have mandatory training each year now. So the state of Ohio reimburses us the cost for that, and that's what this is.
And that's CPT reimbursement.
Correct.
Right.
CPT reimbursement, it's continuing professional training.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 24-9, advances for the fiscal year 23 CHIP.
The account number on the second line needs to change to 127. This is the same thing as item number 5, and we're going to talk about it again in items number 9 and 10. This is where it originally came in. We thought it was a state grant, and then it's been determined it's a federal grant, so it's 127 now.
Okay.
Move to approve as modified.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2410 Solar Eclipse Fund. Ooh. That's a good one. Keith, is this you?
So this is a pass-through as well. Well, it's an account, but not a, it says fund, but it's just an account, but it's a pass-through money.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2417, an expenditure for fiscal year 22 CHIP rehab, 1244 Hadcock Road. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this is also to do with the CHIP lab funds. So we received $60,000 for additional CHIP funds for lead abatement. So LAP is lead abatement program. So this is a previously approved CHIP project at 1244 Hadcock. So what we're doing here is we're splitting the cost between our home fund and our CHIP lab funds. So it's 139 is CHIP home. It's 41,925. And then the CHIP lap is 1270463, which is $30,000. Emergency cause is requested as this is already kind of in motion, and we'd like to get the accounting sorted out. Thank you.
Any questions?
You caught that there's a fund change there, the 129 to 127, right?
Yeah. This is the one, right?
Move to approve with the emergency clause as
Second.
modified.
Second,
further-
including emergency clause?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2418, expenditure fiscal year 22 CHIP rehab, 850 North Huntington. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the same situation here at 850 North Huntington. We're splitting it between the 139 CHIP home for $25,575, and then the 127 is $15,000 for the lead abatement. Thank you.
Any questions?
Move to approve as modified with the emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2420, RFQ fiscal year 24 CHIP Fair Housing Services. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the last two parts were for our program year 22 CHIP. This is starting the process all over again with the program year 24. This is a request for qualifications and proposals to administer, our consultant to administer the program year 24 CHIP. I'll note we have in the request that it includes community development block grant program. We're going to strike that. We're not going to send out that RFQ, RFP at this time. That'll be in another year. The emergency clause is requested as this is the start of a long application process, which ends in about May or June. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2421, 2024 material bids. Nino?
Thank you, Mr. President. So this request will allow us to bid for materials such as concrete, stone, also in the water department, water meters, parts, and accessories used to maintain the system, as well as chlorine cylinders for the year. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President,
Oh,
we missed one there. We missed the Fair Housing Services, sir.
Andrew had two in a row.
We did this one, but we didn't do this
oh, I'm sorry.
20,
Okay, so we're going back to 2420, which is, I thought we did that. You talked about the fair housing one.
Yeah, so the first one is for our consultant. The second one is the fair housing portion of the
Oh,
CHIP.
okay, that's why I crossed it, because I thought, okay. So this is 2420 RFQs and for the fiscal year 22 CHIP Fair Housing Services.
Thank you. This is a request for qualifications proposals for the fair housing portion of our program year 24 CHIP. Again, we'll strike out the community development block grant program. We're not going to be requesting that at this time. Thank you.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, then we did material bids. Now we're on 2422. This is to adopt the 2023 NFPA National Electric Code Building Department, 2024 Ohio Building Code, and 2024 Ohio Plumbing Code. Mr. Gladish.
I apologize for the confusion. There are the three new codes that will need to be adopted. When I completed the request, I clipped them all together, so it just came up as one.
Yeah, you stapled them.
Yeah, I clipped them together, didn't I? But anyway, on March 1st of this year, the State of Ohio Board of Building Standards will be adopting new codes. The first one will be the National Electric Code. We're going to be going from the 2017 to the 2023. The second one is going to be the Ohio Plumbing Code, and we're going to be going from the 2017 to the 2024 Ohio Plumbing Code. And then the last one is the Ohio Building Code. We're going to be going from the 2017 Ohio Building Code to the 2024 Ohio Building Code. So there'll be three.
Did you read them all?
Yep. We were in class or in training all last week.
What's the substantial changes that are going to occur?
The energy codes are a big one, and then the existing building codes, there's a lot of modifications to that. Ohio has a special chapter. They're still going to incorporate that, but it's going to be in what is called an international existing building code. So architects and engineers will have three options to choose from. Ohio has the best one. It's the most business friendliest.
Are we going to do it as three then?
I think we do them all together, and then when we go to council, we probably should separate them out. Okay.
Okay. Move to approve the electrical, plumbing, and Ohio building codes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And finally, 24-23 grant application, ODOD Brownfield Remediation Program. Mrs. Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. So this request is to authorize the mayor to apply for an Ohio Department of Development Brownfield Remediation Program Assessment Grant application to cover the cost of environmental assessments for the former Yost-Sunoco site located at 426 West Liberty Street, and execute any and all documents. And if approved, the city will need to enter into a subrecipient grant agreement with the Medina County Port Authority, as the commissioners have designated them as the lead entity for the state of Ohio. The grant applications are due to the state by April 1st, but the Port Authority will need our application by January 29th, as the applications are reviewed on a first-come, first-served basis at the state level, so they want to get ours in there as soon as possible. The budget estimate for the project right now is estimated at $400,000, and of that, the city will need to have a match of $100,000. So we're trying to apply for the maximum amount of $300,000 at the state level, and then our match would be at $100,000. I think in your packets, there was a memo from Law Director Huber about Ohio Revised Code 5723.01, advising a political subdivision where there's forfeited land can enter that land for the environmental assessments without the liability. And I think all of you, well, some of you are newer, but for those of you that have been on council for a while know that the site has been blighted for quite some time, and we've been looking for a way to clean up the site. There's underground tanks, get those environmental assessments assessed and done, and really figure out what is the impact. And for quite some time, we really didn't know about this Ohio Revised Code, and this came out through meetings with county leadership, Commissioner Hambley, and our state legislator folks. So we've been talking to them, and then the prosecutor's office, Mike Lyons, and there's another fellow there, I forget his name, but Greg talked to Mike Lyons about this. So if we're able to get this grant funding, they will provide the site access agreement that we need to hire a consultant to perform all the environmental assessments. And then also Campbell Oil, that used to have some tanks there that they had removed. They were never allowed to go back on the site to install monitoring wells and finish up their work. So through environmental consultant that we worked with in the past, he contacted Dave Biskner down in Buster, who's been in contact with Campbell Oil, and they are still committed to, if we can provide site access, they're committed to doing their portion of the project. So with the state's funding, we thought we would try to get it in this round that they had just announced a couple months ago. But it's very competitive, and like I said, the state is looking at these applications on first come, first served.
Let me ask the question, so assume we get the grant, we pay our share of the money, it's all cleaned up, who gets the property?
Then we would want to take then we could get the property because,
Would we have first chance, or could the state sell it to somebody else?
no, because the county auditor could go back to doing an auditor's sale. They could put it back on there and then we could get it, so.
Well, it's an auditor's sale, anybody can get it. I guess the question is, if we're putting money into it, I want to be assured that we're going to get it for no additional money. Is that possible? Because if we're going to get 400,000, we put 100,000 into it, maybe that's what it's worth. Why would we want to put 100,000 into it, then somebody else take it from us? And then,
Well, I like the way that you're thinking, Presidente, but the problem is, and has been for quite some time, that we did not want to take ownership of it because we did
Right.
not want the liability. Now we have found this path forward. Mr. Huber is comfortable with the conversation that he's had with Mr. Lyons, and so we haven't talked about this part of it.
So the only thing I'm comfortable with is that we can go in there and do an assessment. The questions you're asking are good questions. It's a money issue, and I don't know in any sale what the guarantees are that the city would acquire the property after this.
well, I would think that we'd want control of the property, then we could dictate what happens there. But I guess the question is, if we put in this money, I didn't know if the state, if we obtain the grant, if the state would say, well, you guys can check it out, and if you clean it up, you get the property. That would be the
I think the
ideal.
county's in control of the property at this point, not
Oh, are
the
they?
state.
Oh,
The
okay.
state's just kind of like a holding company of the property, but they don't want anything to do with it. So they'd like to see the property get cleaned up.
But are they going to want something to do with it once we spend the
No.
$100,000 to clean it up?
No, because,
Can we
no.
put a lien on it for whatever we put into it?
No,
Put a
the
lien
whole
on it,
idea of this, to
recoup
clean it
our
up,
costs?
the whole idea to assess it and clean it up is to get it redeveloped. The state does not want to be involved with that. They just would like to see a no further action and have the site cleaned up.
Well, I guess we're asking questions early. I guess if we obtain the grant, then we got to talk to the county to make sure that we have a little bit of control over it, I would imagine we want.
The alternative is just another vacant lot in Ward 1.
And-
So,
And that it continues to sit there like it has been for
Yes.
years, so.
Well, if you remember, this West Liberty was part of our comprehensive plan. It's a major thoroughfare, it's a major corridor. And I think, is this Ward 1? Is this in Ward 1? Yeah, so this is Ward 1. We've been talking about this for about 10 years now, this site. So I think the first thing would just be to do these if we could get this grant, because before we didn't have this path forward because the state didn't have these monies and we didn't know about these rules.
Well, the amount of money we're talking about seems to me that includes the remediation. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Well, here's the thing with this. So because there's tanks in the ground, when you hire the consultant, if they're going to test the soil, they have to pull the tank to do it. So that is to our benefit. I wouldn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves until we really know what we're dealing with, and we don't know that until we do the environmental assessments. But I think the bigger question is, because you always ask about the questions, the bigger question is, where are we going to take the 100,000 matching if you approve this? So I
Natalie
had
brought
put,
that question up earlier. I have an idea, but I'd like to hear your idea.
no, you go first.
No,
it's gone.
I was going to say, he's going to tell you it's going to involve your budget. So you might as well go ahead first, Mrs. Marshall.
No, you go first.
We have an account that has money in it that's probably used for economic development, and I'm thinking of it, and I think you're thinking of it too, and it may work.
So I was thinking about that as a possibility, because I was looking at our financial documents came out from Keith's office, I think last week, and we would have enough money to cover that.
Oh, we have a lot more, yes.
Well, don't forget, half of Barbara's salary comes out of that.
Well, I know, but I mean, we're getting
don't
money
need
out,
to get-
it just keeps We're talking about the JED account.
Oh, for the JED fund, we'll be getting new monies, and then, of course, you know, there's the potential of a lot of new development opportunities in the JED this year,
Right.
so, I mean, we won't
I mean, that's
realize that
kind of what
for,
it's used for, is economic development. It seems like
Yes.
if the money's, there's enough money in there to cover this match, and then that would serve the purpose of what it's for.
yeah. And the state may come back, they may not give us the full amount, so that match money may get reduced a little bit, but we're asking for the maximum allowable under this grant. The other item, we're asking for the emergency clause because we want to get this into the state of Ohio as soon as possible. And it has to go through the Port Authority's Review Committee, and then they will send it to the state. So,
And Kimberly, I
Yes.
just, maybe I misunderstood you. I thought you said that initially Standard Oil removed the tanks, but they haven't been able to do the monitoring?
so Campbell Oil
Campbell
had
Oil.
some waste oil tanks on the site at one time. And when it was under different ownership, the ownership that went defunct, Campbell Oil removed those tanks, but then when the company went defunct, then they were never allowed to go back onto the site to finish up their work, install monitoring wells, and do whatever.
So the tanks, the storage tanks for the fuel is still in the ground?
So there's.
Still a tank in the ground.
Yeah, there's some tanks, but they're different tanks and it's different ownership. The tanks that Campbell Oil had, those ones have been removed. There are still other,
gotcha.
like, gas oil tanks and stuff
Right,
in the ground.
Okay.
So there's a couple different releases, that's the term that the state uses, they call them releases. So, we've never been able to find a path forward without the city taking all of the liability. And we've been talking for years, at the county level, they've been talking forever and a day about forming a land bank, and quite frankly, they're still talking about it, but now we have this other opportunity. So I feel like this is as far as we've come in 10 years talking about this, and I think it's.
Appreciate your hard work on
Yeah, I
it, too.
do feel like this is probably a really good chance, and I don't know if we'll get the grant, but if we don't, because maybe all the money is gone, then I think we try again when they issue the next round.
I agree.
Thank you.
And just for Natalie's notification with the JED account we're
Yes.
talking about, we have a joint economic development district with Montville Township.
Okay.
So if there's development that occurs in Montville Township, not within the city limits, the income tax is imposed, the city income tax is imposed on those developments. And so income tax is generated, and the money that's generated from that income tax, 10% of it goes back to the JED for a maintenance fund, or is it 20%?
I think the 20% comes off of the top before it's split between the city and the township, and then when the city gets their portion, then 60% of that goes into the JED fund, and the remaining portions are split between various departments.
And how much money do we have? I don't remember. I thought it was
I think it's about 182,000 right now,
left in there.
saved up, because
Saved
I've
up.
been saving it for a long time.
I know, we like that. But we get money all, every year, it keeps generating revenue, and, Montville gets to use it for whatever they want to, and then we divide it up this way. So it's not, it's taxpayer dollars generated through properties that's located in the township for a specific purpose, and it's for economic development. That's why we talked about using this money specifically, because this site, the old gas station site, we want to redevelop it.
Right,
So-
okay, that makes sense.
And also, just to go on top of what John said, townships are not allowed to impose an income tax on their residents. So this joint agreement allows, it benefits the city and the township because they're both getting it. Thank you.
Yep, okay.
Mayor?
So for Natalie's benefit too, if you're not familiar with this property, it's the southeast corner of Prospect, where Prospect dead ends into 18.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
The other thing is, if it's okay with the council, because I feel a little bit of your angst here, is I think there's a mechanism for the county for unpaid taxes to transfer it to another government entity. I think we did that with a property in town, although it escapes me right now what it was.
Over here on Friendship.
Was it Friendship or was it Wasn't there one on, by Ray Miller Park?
No, but they both pointed that way.
Okay, I knew it was impressive.
Because we bought one on Foundry, but we also acquired one from. through
That's
this.
right, on Foundry Street.
Yeah.
Right, right, right.
No, that would be
So-
great. That would be
So
great,
if
yeah.
we can get them to commit to that, because obviously the commissioners are behind this as well. They've been very involved with this. The auditor's office has been very helpful with it. So if the county can commit to that, and then while we're waiting for the grant agreement, obviously we don't have to accept the grant if there's no ability for us to be given the land.
Right, okay. That makes sense. Keith?
To Jess's point, you're all worried about, are we gonna get the property? But even if we don't, as it stands now, nobody's paying property taxes on this
Right.
property. Nobody's making income there. It's been years. So even if we just clean it up and then somebody else gets it, we'll still ultimately be ahead because
Right.
you're gonna have a and I think we've done weed collection too. And we always do in advance and then we say it's gonna get repaid, but if they're not paying the property taxes, they're
Well, no,
not
I
paying
get
that
it,
either,
but
so.
thinking ahead, if we can get control of it and get reimbursed a little bit and maybe get some more money, maybe into the CIC
Oh,
or the city,
that'd be
whatever.
better. I don't disagree, that'd be better. I'm just making the point that even if we can't, just getting it done.
Ugly, empty lot.
I know.
So I think, so Andrew and I, we were and the mayor, we were in a meeting with the county officials, it was a couple weeks ago. Andrew, what was the zoning? What is it? It's is it 2? Or 1?
Yeah, I believe so. It's a commercial zoning, yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the overlay district.
So it could allow for, what are the types of uses for?
Commercial office, retail, restaurant,
Pretty much anything.
things of that
Not a
nature.
gas station.
I think that's a conditional use, actually.
Hubert.
Okay, so are we?
I don't know the account number for the JED, but Keith
So
knows
it's a
that.
143 account.
Okay. But you got that memorized, I like
Well,
it.
almost the whole thing, but Keith will have to look up the rest if we are in agreement on that.
Probably have to create a account beyond that.
Okay.
That's the fund and then everything
Right.
else will have to.
Sure.
Let's get the grant.
Okay, any other questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Anything else to come before finance? I think that's it. Then we have about a little less than an hour before council. All right, meeting is adjourned.
Yay.